We found that there is an assumption, a widespread assumption among our research participants, that division is a product of our collective imagination. When people are thinking with this mindset, they tend to point the finger at talk. People are talking to one another in ways that are divisive. We have a lot of talk that is riling people up, cultivating grievance, and it's that is undermining social cohesion, social consensus. When people are thinking in this way, when they're relying upon this assumption, they tend to conclude that if we just got rid of talk, of this kind of divisive talk, then we would be more unified. This mindset can be activated through some of the framing that we see both on the right, also interestingly on the left or among more liberal sources. On the right, in the way that all of the exclusionary and reactionary legislation, anti-CRT legislation, anti-transgender legislation, the Don't Say Gay bills, and frame them as an attempt to restore unity, attempt to ensure that we aren't divided. Framing on the left can actually sometimes potentially unintentionally cue this mindset, can lead people to infer that if we just didn't have these toxic media personalities, people like Tucker Carlson, or back in the day with Jon Stewart, Bill O'Reilly, who were riling up grievance, who were talking in ways that were fueling grievance. We didn't have that kind of talk, then perhaps the kind of social divisions that arise from that kind of talk might go away. This kind of framing may itself, perhaps inadvertently, cue the idea that the problem is the talk rather than the underlying material or structural factors that actually create injustice and lead to social division.
The bad faith reasons why you might want to believe that social division is a product of our collective imagination or is made up and is exacerbated by all this talk. I think we saw some examples of that in Drew's presentation, right? When there is an intended outcome, there's a nefarious intent in spreading that message in order to, silence certain communities. So a good faith reason would be, as humans, human nature is that division makes us uncomfortable. Sometimes it's because we want to avoid accountability. Other times it's because we actually believe that division prevents us from achieving a collective goal. It's because division makes us feel lonely or certainly more alone, and we want to feel unity.
It's not like it just happened 10 years ago, right? It's always been a part of human societies. And as storytelling platforms have changed, we have the misinformation, disinformation has always been there, from print to radio to TV to social media. Like, there's always been mis and disinformation in any kind of communication platform. And so the question is, what are the strategies to disrupt and to transform those attempts at mis and disinformation?
And so it's a really interesting kind of circular logic there, that by talking about it, you create the division, and yet then we have some on the quote unquote other side who then want to exacerbate division, right? It's this really interesting, it's not that interesting, it's a strategy, it's a tactic, it's a silencing tactic, and it's an oppressive tactic.
The focus is on unity, and that's often the go-to, frankly, in these conversations. Personally, I prefer, and I would want to test some hypotheses, I prefer the term solidarity. Because that just gets you in a different place, and it especially primes people to take action together. So like solidarity means you don't have to agree or be unified even, but you can join together with someone in a fight against injustice. How do we then therefore act together in solidarity with one another to show up to try to change a system or a rule that is affecting our lives?
We're not the same, but we can be in this together. We actually are in this together. And so I think part of the challenge right now is, in absence of those institutions functioning,
Yep.
and in absence of those institutions functioning as we would want them to function, how can we still come together to meet some collective goals, knowing that we are different, knowing that we have some divisions?